We begin this morning in the southern part of the continent as we look at the Sowetan newspaper to see what's happening on the front page of the Sowetan. And it's a very sad update here. We're seeing rape horror in schools. Latest crime stats reveal 43 out of 61 pupils were preyed on by fellow learners on school premises in 3 months, and that's on page 2. South Africa has been in the news over time, for conversations about gender-based violence, sexual assault, and now we're seeing that it's even got into the schools. And the question is, what are the law enforcement authorities doing about this? Once a pirate, Zuka wants to stay on the back page. Water crisis, tankers coordinate in Shwane on page 4. ICC ramps up Putin pressure on page 3. And tributes for intellectual rockstar Mkeza on page 4 as well. And that's all that the Sowetan newspaper has this morning. It's quite a light paper. And we're looking forward to hearing the updates of what the Minister of Police, Becky Sele, has to say about the chaotic situation of sexual assault in primary schools. And that's all we can take in the southern part of the continent. Let's head to the east and see what's happening in the eastern part of the continent on the front page of the Daily Monitor newspaper in Uganda.
Yes, on the Daily Monitor this morning, it says the spy chief warns of new DR Congo war. That's a really scary story there. I think, now we're still dealing with what's going on in Sudan. The whole continent should be doing its absolute best to avoid any other form of crisis or war in any part of the continent. But it says the spy chief warns of new DR Congo war. We can also find on the Daily Monitor this morning, why is the West mad at Uganda over anti-gay law? That's a big question. And remember, I spoke about this yesterday, that the reactions, concerning the anti-gay law would mostly come from the United States or come from the West. And, a lot of questions need to be asked, because I hope we'll get into a little bit of that conversation this morning. We'll talk about it a little bit more. Suspect squeezed over murder of inspector. That's on page 8 of the Daily Monitor this morning. And also, we've recovered items looted by Al-Shabaab, says the army. Woman in marriage breach case loses appeal. Ooh.
In marriage what?
Breach case.
Okay.
Yes, breach of marriage.
Maybe it's a breach of promise to marry.
Maybe.
Sounds more like it.
Yeah, maybe. Also this morning, just one more story here. It says an article, meet Ugandan realtor who's making strides in Dubai. These are the big ones on the Daily Monitor this morning. Of course, the biggest conversation here is, of course, the warning of a new war in DR Congo, and also why the West is mad at Uganda over its anti-gay law.
Well, that's a conversation that we're going to be looking at as we proceed with the show. But still on the front page of the Nigerian, let's move to the West rather, and see what's on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. The big story this morning talks about Tinubu subsidy removal remark. It says Labour talks tough, queues spread, petrol prices rise. Governments warn against panic buying. Go after marketers. Federal government owes NNPCL 2.8 trillion naira according to Kiari on page 2. Auxiliary escapes as police arrest 78 suspects, recover arms, ammunition during raid. 84 live AK-47 ammunition, 19 pump action rifles, 4 AK-47 magazines, 724 live cartridges, Others recovered, police say. That's on the front page of the newspaper. We also have 10th National Assembly moves to stop Betara Yari by undemocratic means uncovered, according to NAD. Nigerian woman gets accolade for curating World Cultural Diversity Day celebration in Glasgow. Oh, this is beautiful. Tinubu directs DSS to vacate EFCC office as both agencies fight over ownership. I'm sure you heard
I saw
that
story.
I was wondering,
Very dramatic.
why?
Two government agencies fighting over a building. I think it is. Someone posted yesterday that he believes it is the building does belong to the DSS. Used to be SSS. I don't know when they changed the name to DSS, but that it's a building that he was detained at in the late 90s, I think, when he was activist.
Wow.
And it doesn't belong to the EFCC, but that's his. I'm sure the government will know better.
Well, two fighting, like they say in Nigeria, two fighting. DSS and EFCC, but the president has taken his stand.
Absolutely.
Court upholds federal government no work, no pay policy against ASU on page 8. And ASU and federal government have been in, it's been a squabble for a while now. Timothy Adegoke's murder. Court sentences Adedoyin hotelier to death by hanging. I don't know if you heard of the story. It was a very gruesome murder. Somebody checks into the hotel with the intent to stay there to write an exam, a virtual exam, it seems. And then there were conversations about him having died and been buried in a shallow grave in the hotel. It's just really wild. But yeah, he's been sentenced to death. And we, of course, will be following updates on that story. And the final stories this morning, two more. Nigeria spent 11.350 trillion naira on turnaround maintenance of 3 moribund refineries between 2010 and 2020, according to reps. And they asked federal government to revoke 37 inactive refinery licenses. And that's all that is on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. I believe that that's all the newspapers that we have this morning.
Oh, we still have the Daily Sun, which comes up next.
Okay.
Of course, to share with you, still here in Nigeria. It says, "Don't dare Nigerians." NLC warns Tinubu, and of course, on the death by hanging case that you mentioned, or the verdict that you mentioned. Of course, he still has a right to appeal. I think he can still go all the way to the Supreme Court to appeal the ruling, rather.
The judgment.
The judgment, rather. But, it's important to look at the little details concerning the case. And people also did mention that all through the case and when the case was going to court, the trial, rather, that's the word.
Yeah.
That, it was a few times that he even showed up exactly. At the times that he showed up, he didn't show up in the police Black Maria as should. He came in his own private vehicle, air-conditioned vehicle. He's also someone who, at some point, was seemingly contesting to be the Oni of Ife, or was trying to be the Oni of Ife, but that didn't work out. And of course, how much of an influential person in society that he is, to be eventually now be sentenced to death by hanging. So these little details here and there, things are being interrogated. In Nigeria, every now and then we hear stories about things called ritual killings.
Yeah. That,
I don't think the Nigerian society has been able to have a proper conversation about those things, if they are real or not, but it's interesting seeing the way this case is turned. Well, still on the Daily Sun, President's subsidy removal statement. Once again, don't dare Nigerians, NLC warns Tinubu. And also, President meets Emefiele and Kyari. States weak in debt management, financial transparency, says the CBN. And also, court okays federal government's no work, no pay against ASU. Tribunal admits documents tendered by Obi in defense of petition. A few others this morning. Senate leadership, Kalu in talks with Yari's camp, moves to stop Yari undemocratic, says the group. And also, Tinubu orders DSS to vacate EFCC's Lagos office, forcefully taking over. We can also find here death in hotel, Adedoyin and 2 others to die by hanging over OAU students' murder. I think these are the big ones that we can share this morning on your screen on the Daily Sun. Biafra Day, IPOB shuts down Southeast, 30 arrested in Enugu. Masab urges Tinubu to release Kanu. So yes, there might be a slightly different conversation with the new president and the new, of course, people in office concerning some of the things that, of course, the previous administration didn't, pay that much attention to. So we might have a different conversation concerning Nnamdi Kanu, or maybe not. Mostly also, when I said maybe not, I just remembered the, little bit sprinkle here and there of tribalism that occurred in the build up to the election. So I feel like, those things would also, be a little tricky now having those conversations, in this time. And a couple of other things. So we'll see how it goes. The new administration has a lot of responsibility on its hands, obviously. And we hope that they're able to understand this and do things different. These are the stories that we can share at this time. On the front pages across the continent. We'll be bringing you more newspapers in the second half of Breakfast Central. But now let's get into the top stories for today. Stay with us.